Hello again. This is the Circadian Omega clone, and this is going to be a video about standings, something that I always wanted to do and never really did. So it is due time. Since I started this alpha clone here, I've spent a lot of time in rookie chat and helping new players, and this is a thing that always comes up. And I remember from my first days that I screwed up my faction standings, and so a lot of players having issues with understanding how it works, how to gain them, or why they lost them, and why somebody is now shooting at them. And I don't mean players, I mean NPC corps and factions. The faction navies of the empires are starting shooting at them while they're trying to haul their stuff from, let's say, Galente space down to the Jita hub in Kaldari space, and they're being shot at and like, oh, you're an enemy of the state, we don't like you. And they're just like, what? I'm just 16 years old, and how did this happen? I've just been running missions. It's like, yeah, that's how you did it. So there's a few different things about standings. I would classify them as like personal standings, and then the standings were towards all the NPC corporations and agents and factions. Personal standings I'll see just like as an indicator of relations that you have with other people. Like you can see here in a local, they all have 0 standings. I mean, they all have like no standings set and don't appear as anything unless you edit this in the overview. But you can always add them under add contact, and then you can select the standings. Usually, if you meet somebody new and like a casual acquaintance or something, and you want to just mark him and keep him, you can just put neutral standings. If you are friends with them, you have good standings, and if I would reserve excellent for people for a long time, or like personal friends or something. Bad standings if you're skeptical, or if it's like a short-term threat, which is something I used in 0.0. Terrible standing is something that is always hostile, or you always want to be aware of. So let's just do this for one person here, and you can always watch these in peoples and places, which is all which are all things that you personally edit the context in here. The agents or NPCs, you don't have any influence on this directly, just by influencing or gaining or losing standings. But here in your contacts, which are sorted also by the different standing types that you can set them, and they're just flat values from -10, -5, 0, +5 and +10. So let's just add this Clark Anderson here, add contact. I'm like pretending he's a suspect or something. He's always intruding into my anomalies or something. I've seen him a few times, so I'm just want to see if he's in system. Be wary about him, so I give him bad standings. I don't put him on my body list because it doesn't matter anymore, because he has to accept that too to be on my body list, which was the former watch list where you could just spy on people coming online and offline. If you both check this box, you will then get this indicator is green if you're both online, so you can see if they're online. Red means they either haven't accepted it or they're offline. You can send a notification, of course, which we don't want to do now, but you will do this with friends. So I add him as contact, Clark Anderson. Now he appears in bad standings. He shows here in this list, and he also now shows in local. And depending on your overview settings, he will appear as orange marked full text or icon, blinking icon. You can all edit this, but this is not a video about the overview. This is a video just about the standings. So here he appears now as -8, and he will be visible here and in local chat. And local chat, for instance, is an important source of intelligence, of information in low sec and 0.0. So if everybody else is blue, and you just want to mark one person that is coming into the system, what immediately jumps out is like, there's an orange guy, and he's not one of us. And of course it's worse than if it's red. So you can not only do this one person at a time, you can, when you go to the info window, you can just click on the corporation if you're wary of the corporation, add the whole corporation here, add contact, do the same thing. or you can look up somebody. This is something I would do for everybody who's in NPC Corp, or like in any corp, and not part of code, for instance. So you can type in code. You can see I was already pre-selected. You search for code, you add code, add contact, -10, set red, and code will now show as -10 and appear in the overview and in local if code is somebody from code is here. This is what you want to have anyway if you're flying in HiSec a lot and are not part of code, of course. So yeah, Wardeck me, I'm an NPC Corp. Yeah. So code is like they are like half role players who are enforcing some kind of code in HiSec, and they like to correct people's behaviors, just shoot them, suicide gang them. So it's good to know if some of them, or one or even more, jump into the system. If you're somebody who is mining a lot and hasn't paid any, what's it called? It's not blackmail. It's called for extortion. You know, if you're being extorted for some license or something, then they will come and shoot you probably. So yeah, it's good to have them anyway. So as a practice, set them just to 10. And here you can see all the personal contacts. Now they're shown all contacts, one red, and then there's one orange in here. These are just like people I know, people I casually know, or had conversations with who had questions. I helped along, and so yeah. There's not much happening here. There's also the block list, people who are like kind of offending you. Might not be offensive to everybody, but who annoy you in chat or something, you can block here. You will also not get any mail from them if they spam you or something. So these are just the personal standings that you can set yourself, which are important because they give you indications in your overview when you're actually in space or in local chat. If you want to know if one or many of those come into the system, or if you just want to see, oh, my friend logged in, then you should have you on your buddy list. So, but these have no influence on any mechanism in the game. No technical issues, like they don't reduce taxes just because you think like, oh, I'm friendly with him. This is all like in between players, and whatever you decide you're gonna do for your friend or against your enemy. The part that just, you know, kind of impacts on a lot of players' game is the relationship to the non-player characters, to those agents, corporations, and factions. For this, I'm just gonna dock back up again, because there's some things in the station window. So for instance, now I'm in Keithalet, which is in Khanate space. This is a station of Royal Khanate Navy, and if you want to get information about how my standings are towards them, you can open your character sheet and go to interactions, and here you have kill right, security, combat log, and standings in the first in the second tab. And here they are ordered by factions and corporations, and further down the agents. And agent standings don't really matter at all. I'm not sure why this is in here anyway, and why there's no like close this tab or something, because the list just does not really matter. They're like very, very minute circumstances where you actually have to look for or benefit from the agent standings. I think once, many years ago, they had an influence on payout. This is not the case anymore. And these are the ones liked. If you want to see the ones that dislike you, those are here. And as you can see, that the Amar Empire doesn't really like me. Khanate Kingdom, skeptical. But the rest that is in minus are the pirate factions, which of course I have no issue with shooting their ships down. So, but this is important to look at this, because there are, you know, repercussions if this gets too low. Another source is of course like in the station. You can look at the station window where you're in, and there's always a standing tab for every faction, every entity. There's a standing tabs towards you, and everything that is like grayed out, it says 0, but there is a value, but it doesn't show because it's not activated or once you're restricted to only your things. If I look at this guy and I look at the standings, this is just something I don't see. So everything is grayed out completely. I'm not allowed to see his standings. So don't worry or something. I clicked on him and it says 0. Like, no, his standings and also to this is not neutral. He is +10. It's his corp. I know this, but it shows as no value actually here, even though it says 0 and neutral. So, but yeah. First of all, it is how it really works is like from bottom to top is like the agents are the lowest entities. They are part of a corporation. So the corporation is the next level, the next entity. So always the highest number, the highest value counts for the services that you can acquire, or like tax breaks, not tax breaks, but discounts you get on broker fees and refine payments and such things. So it is always the highest that counts. So if, for instance, I go to a new agent and I have like standings of 0 with this new agent, but I have like let's say I have Sisters of Eve level not level standing 5.0, but 0 with the agent, then I'm still allowed to access his service even though he's a level 4 agent, because I need 5.0, either the agent or the corporation. And this again goes further up to the faction, that if my faction standing is high enough, I can not only access a certain agent, but I can access all corporations under that faction and all agents in those corporations, which means faction rules over corporation, corporation rules over agent. But you can still, if one of the others is not high enough, you can always still use the highest in between. It always counts the highest wherever you go. The only difference is that, or exception is that, when you go for lowest, for a negative impact, faction standing counts. It does not matter if you have corporation standing 10, if you have faction standing -5, they will still shoot at you. So worst case is always faction. This is why you always have to take care of your faction, no matter how good or how friendly the corporations are to you. You always have to watch this top tier here, the factions, or mostly watch this, that nothing of the empires is in here if you try to stay in empire or want to return to empire, which is a big thing, because a lot of people go to low sec, start factional warfare, they go back, I want to do some high sec stuff, I want to skill, I want to trade something, and then you have Amar Empire -8 because you ran for Minmatar factional warfare. This is what happens, and quickly happens with new players. So, like I said, it goes the highest counts, but the thing is that why I said agent standings really has no value is because each agent has a level. They do not upgrade. Sister Aliutra is a level 1 agent. She did not upgrade to level 4, reaching 5.0 and give me level 4 missions. They never upgrade. They also don't grade, of course, but they never upgrade. So this value is redundant. It doesn't give you any influence on other agents from Sisters of Eve. The only thing that counts is the corporation, because if I want to access a level 2 agent, I have to go to the next location where a level 2 agent is, and I need the level 2 requirements from the corporation. So it doesn't matter which value they have. So showing this list here is not necessary at all. You don't have to look at the agents at all. This is what counts. This is a corporation standing counts. So I'm actually able to access level 2 agents, and if I get this to 3.10, I can access the level 3 agents from Sisters of Eve. I already unlocked School of Applied Knowledge and Republic University. And as you can see, even though there's Hisa Yoda, which is a Caldari corporation, this is the only one I can see at the moment that I can run level 2 agents for. But I have Caldari State over 1, so I can actually use every Caldari agent level 2, even though the corporation is not even listed. And the corporation is probably all just standard 0 when I go there. But this allows me to actually run for Galente, Minwata and Caldari level 2 agents. And I can just pick the corporation I like. So, and so what does it actually mean, the number? So I mentioned already a few. So you unlock agents with the standings. You unlock level 1 agents always. They even work at -10. The problem is only that you have to do the missions in the space they live in. So they will give you a mission, but as soon as you undock, their navy will shoot at you. So this is a problem. So you don't ever want to get it this low. So you can always access level 1 agents, but to access level 2 agents, you need to be +1 with the corporation and not -2 or lower with a faction. So this is the negative thing. At -5, maybe I should start with this. At -5 and lower, the faction navy will shoot at you. That's just how it is. At -2 or lower, the faction will overrule all corporations and will disallow you the use of any agent higher than level 1. This is what I was just talking about a moment before. And everything else on the plus side, until you reach +8 for the faction. No, it doesn't even matter for the faction. It just doesn't matter. It just shouldn't be lower than -2. So there are some perks that you can get later on if you have very, very high standings, but this is so rare, and until you get here, you probably know more about this than me. So I'm not going to go into this anymore. But going back to the agents and their services, it's level 2, starts at 1.0. Level 3 agent is unlocked at 3.0, and level 4 agent is unlocked at 5.0 corporation standings. At 8.0 corporation standings, the corporation will allow you to install a jump clone. This can be averted by joining a player corporation, and if the player corporation opens an office, for instance, you can install jump clones remotely, even I think at least once a year, or switch home clone bay in that office because they rented it. But as a player in an NPC corp, for instance, they will not allow you to do this. Of course, all of this is kind of redundant now with the citadels. So if somebody allows you to install a jump clone in their citadel, you avoid the whole NPC jump clone standing grunt, which is probably what CCP wanted anyway. So, and so you have your personal standings. These are my personal standings towards them. Since I'm in an NPC corp myself, this is what is taken to see what I can access, or how they are to, how the relations are towards me. If I would be in a player corporation, there's something that's called like corporate standings, which means that the standings towards faction and the corporation is even out for all players in that player corporation, and it adjusts over time, so it is evened out over a couple of days. But of course, if people are always, increasing their standings or losing standings, then this will always be fluent. But basically, you can join somebody who has very high corporate standings and a lot of players, and you have none. You go in there, and the average doesn't really drop because you're just one of maybe 50 or 60 people, and you can access all the agents they unlocked. This is why, for instance, EVE University, I think, or at least they had this, that they had, agents accessible everywhere in Empire space. So joining them will give you instant access. Some other corporations offer this, or this might be actually a corp that they say like, we can't really accept you because you will drop our standings and then we lose access or something. But I haven't personally encountered this, but it could be an issue. And so the question now is like, we go to how do I gain standings? But the more important question, this is why I probably come to this video if it's not too late, is how did I lose standings, which is the more important part. So you lose standings first and foremost because you destroyed something of that faction. This could be in factional warfare in low-sec. For instance, if you shoot opposing factions' navy ships, this could be from destruction or ship kills from missions. And there's something that hasn't been fixed in many years, which should be fixed, is that level 2 agents or level 2 missions, accordingly, have some missions which have a very high penalty. Much higher than level 4 agents. So when you're low in standings and your opportunities are restricted because you're a new player and you're running these things a lot and you haven't really gone into the game and understood how the mechanics work, you can very quickly destroy your faction standings to the opposing factions. While when you're reaching level 4, you probably know about it, and strangely the penalty is very low. The penalty for a ship kill in a level 2 mission can be minus 2.4%, which is incredibly much for the faction, not the corporation, for the faction. And I don't even know about a level 4 mission that has this impact, but usually a ship kill in a level 4 mission every 15 minutes is minus 0.02%. Comparing this to minus 2.4% is more 100 times. That means you have like what is 100 times harder impact in a level 2 mission, where you don't really know what you're doing, compared to a level 4 mission where you know what you're doing or should be aware of it, and then you could be punished for something you disregard. This is something that should be fixed, but it hasn't been, and I'm skeptical that it ever will be fixed. So this is actually why I made this video, because there's a lot of people coming from these level 2 missions and I have their standings screwed up. I had this myself. I was Kaldari when I started first many years ago. I've been loving Galente ships. I've been flying the Galente missions, Sisters of Eve. I returned to Kaldari space, and they shot at me and I was like, why are they doing this? And then I've started reading about it, and then I figured out how to fix it. But it's very difficult to do it technically, and then it's also very depressing doing it when you're used to fly level 4 missions in the battleship. For instance, you train for all these skills, you train for this, you bought these ships, you have all this, and then you have to go back and start with level 1 agents to grind your way back from minus 2. You feel like you're being slapped in the face multiple times, and it takes weeks to do this, especially if you already used up other opportunities. Like people are like training diplomacy, for instance, and then like, oh, I already trained it and I'm still by minus. That's a big detriment. or like, oh, I did Sisters of Eve, but I ran the epic arc for the faction I'm working for. So you can't use it to fix your opposing faction standings. So this is a big issue. So going back before I lose myself here, the faction losses or the standing losses, you lose standings from ship kills, and this can be on your own or due to missions from agents. So what you should do if you want to keep your standings at least balanced a bit, or have the decline less impactful, you should always decline Empire kill missions. Another thing is that where you lose standings is, besides ship kill, is that you lose it when you fail a mission or when you quit a mission. Not when you decline a mission under the 4-hour timer. So if you get like 2 missions against an empire in a row, you decline the first one, no problem, and then you want to decline the second one, and it says 4 hours, and you say like, I don't want to wait, I don't want to skip agent, or skip to another station or run for another agent, and you like, decline 2, then you get a hefty standing hit, almost like ship kill. So you don't want to fail a mission, you get the standing penalty. You don't want to quit a mission, like quitting it early, like I can't finish this, I don't have no time. Even if you let it run out after 7 days, it will still count as failed. And you don't want to decline more than every 4 hours a mission. So this means that you have to take breaks, or you have to switch to another agent, or do something else if you don't find another agent you want to run for. So these are the sources for standing loss. And then you have something which is called derived modification. So, and you can check this again, which is also a good source for other information here. The interaction window. Let's see, I think I ran for Minmatar last time. So you can right click, show transaction, and here it will show you, let's move this a bit, it will show you your standing losses, your standing gains, and why. And here's, for instance, this is a faction or a storyline mission. These are the career agents, so I got faction increase for them. You can run all 12 locations once, overall for empires, so 3 for every faction, and you get this standing increase. And then I'm not sure for whom I ran special cargo delivery. Yeah, this was for Minmatar. This was the mission I ran. This is a storyline mission. I got 2.09% increase. These are derived modifications because I ran for somebody else. So somebody else, for some other corporation, I got for a completed mission an increase, and a percentage of that went to Minmatar because they're allied. The same is here. So opposing Minmatar is Amar. So this is probably why they're negative. If I open the transaction here, you can see that for all the Minmatar missions I ran, I got a negative derived modification for the opposing faction. So, and the same works for allies. So, Minmatar is opposed by Amar, and Kaldari is an ally of Amar. So if I check the Kaldari window now, I should also see derived modification, which is lower than this one, because it's always a percentage of a percentage. Show transaction should be negative, yeah. These are also negative, but always smaller. So the average rule of thumb is that the main faction gets 100% of the increase. The ally, which Minmatar Escalante, gets 50% of that increase. The opposing faction loses 50% of those, and the allied faction of the opposing faction loses half of that, which is 25% of the 100% increase for the main faction you ran for. So, so this is how this works. And this is where you like steadily over time lose small amounts of standings, and if you never check this, like, oh, I never killed the ship, and I never ran something against them, but you always accept the storyline missions for the faction or the corporation's faction that you're working for, it will trickle, into this negative, like, over a long time, and then you end up with something like this. So this is how the derived modification works. But of course there's a chart, the relations between corporations and every factions. So when you run for somebody who is only an ally to anyone, and like for instance, I am running for Carnet with another character here, and they don't really have an opposing faction. So they are allied with Amar. So Amar gets 50% increase of that increase from Kingdom. So the opposing faction only gets a quarter, and the allied of the opposing only gets an eighth. So the impact is much, much smaller. The same works with, for instance, Sisters of Eve. So if you run for them, they are not an opposing faction to anyone, so they only have allies and then the opposition to those allies. So the impact is much, much lower. And it also has the benefit of being smaller corporations, which means that fewer people are running for them, and they have like an internal number of members or something. So often you get higher standing increases from smaller corporations. It just works faster somehow. I don't know if this is like just some subjective bias, but it has been like this for a while, and I don't know if there's any valid math behind it or programming, but this is it has some kind of influence, or seemingly. Somebody please correct me on this. If I'm wrong, I'm probably wrong. But well, it's also quieter running for smaller corporations, so you have your peace and are not being camped or something. So this is how you can lose standing. So it's ship kill, failed or declined, and then you have derived modification. So you can avoid all standing loss if you never kill any opposing ships. This is why we're here to show you this. And if you never accept the storyline missions, you don't have to run the storyline missions. Your cooperation standings will still increase, but your faction standings will stay the same all the time. So you can actually do this, which makes it hard really to access new corporations under an umbrella faction. But well, that could be the price you're willing to pay to start grinding again. But it doesn't take much. It took me last week I started a new corporation, completely new. I started to run for some small corporation, and it took me I think 2 days just on mission running, and not really long, a few hours each day, and I went from none to 5.0 in just 2 days, chaining very quickly, and so it's possible to do this, and I did this just like with a cruiser. I did even the level 3 missions with a cruiser. My skills were only just like level 3 to unlock the next stage, so I went back, from Marauder down to cruiser. It still worked. I only died once because the electricity went out, as you can see in the other video. So so now how we established how we can lose standings. Let's talk about how gaining standings. Just because just go finish this one here. So here, when you get the mission offer, you will see here at the location whom you're running against, and here in this case it's Sancha. You can click on it. It says Sancha Nation. So here you are safe. You know whom you're fighting, and you're good. And if here's an empire, you just hit decline. It will show you before you accept the mission whom you're fighting. And sometimes it says in the text just like mercenary, blah blah blah, Amar, blah blah blah, but there's just a yellow ring. There's not a navy location, then it's just some splinter group of that faction They are not actually those Navy ships. They have an alternate name. But as soon as you see an icon here, and I haven't had any exception yet, as soon as you see an icon here that is Kaldari or Sama, Minmatar, Khanet or whatever, you will have to kill those ships, or at least are presented with the option. But usually, with all but one mission, you of course have to clear the location. It usually says destroy the ships, so you fail if you don't kill them. There's only one mission, and that is the scout mission, and it's called, oh, what the hell? It's called Trap or something? And I should have looked this up. Yeah, it was something like this. It's called Deadly Arrival, and it's level 2 and level 3 missions. You can access these. You just have to warp to the location. You approach the celestial object, which is, I think, a lot of like broken down parts close to some asteroids. And as soon as you reach like 10 kilometers distance or something, the trap will spring, and you just warp out. This is the only mission you can run, which shows an Empire faction. It's called Deadly Arrival. I will also, before I forget this, I will also link like the standings lecture from EVE University, faction standing link from EVE University wiki, and the mission guide, which is called EVE Survival, where just look this back up, and which is something that is very helpful, especially like if you always like just open up the comments on the bottom, just scroll like down to the last entry, and usually the last 2-3 people always complain, oh, I lost standings, if you're not certain about a certain mission. Otherwise, I would not really recommend using it all the time, because it can make mission running very boring, because you're very effective and you're just like memorizing everything, and it just becomes a routine really quickly. I now step back after a long time of not running any missions to just not use anything and just be kind of surprised by what's happening, and that makes it much more exciting. And I'm not really after like very effective ISK per hour, so I don't rely on it, and it's just way more fun to wing it in a certain way, and or like have a depot with you and refit mid mission. But again, I'm getting distracted here. I'll link all this, also like this relation map between the factions, where this influence between the standing losses and gains are a bit more detailed. My like 50%, 25% is just the rule of thumb. It's very roughly, but it usually gives you an idea of how it works with the opposing faction and allies and opposing allies. So this should end the kind of how do I lose my standings section. If you have questions, just write me a mail or post it or whatever. I will try to address it. And so now we go like in regards to how do I fix my standings, into how do I gain standings at all. When you run for an agent, you gain standings for that agent, and a part of it goes to the corporation the agent belongs to. So when you're running missions for an agent, the agent standings or personal standings of the agent might actually increase faster if you're only looking at the mission screen than the corporation standings. You have to check it, of course, in your interaction field, or click on the info window of the agent or the station the agent is in. And because the agent is always related to the station that is owned by that corporation, no matter who owns the space. So, and this is kind of where the chain ends. It does not matter how much corporation standings you are increasing, the faction standing will not increase unless you run a very special mission, and this mission is always accompanied by a letter, and is given you by a storyline agent, and this is called the faction mission. And when you go to your mail, it should check under communications. Let's have a look. Agent, I didn't have it, and it's probably too old They should be here under agents. So here will appear like a notification from an agent. I have a very special mission for you, very important, and this will appear every 16th mission for the same corporation and the same agent type. It only appears when you run consecutive 16 missions level 2 for a security agent. If you're swapping it out with distribution and mining, it won't trigger. It will still count, but it won't trigger until you hit 16 in a row for the same corporation, the same agent. If you switch corporation again, it will not trigger. It will only trigger for that corporation if you run 16 missions in a row. Well, it doesn't have to be in a row. It can be interrupted, but you know, a total of 60 missions. He will give you a storyline mission, or faction mission as we call it. So, and you can always decline it. It's an optional one. But this is the only way you can increase actually your faction standing. And it usually is also a big boost, this is why people do it, towards the corporation the faction is in. That's part of the faction. A lot of times it's combined with a great payout, or you get like an item like cerebral augmentations, you know, like +3, +4 items or something. You can sell like for 20 million or 40 million or something. So it's very, you know, attractive to run it, but you don't have to. Like I said, you can decline it, but if you do, you should check the impact it has, and then once you did this, you after a while you switch to an opposing faction and balance it out again. And because the penalty is always less than the gain, you can over time shuffle them both up, so you have both factions, opposing factions, increasing very slowly over time, and first gaining for the other, and gaining for the previous one, but losing a little bit of the other, and back and forth, but always increasing a little bit. So this is how you can balance it out and bring it up at the same time, which will take ages, but it's still possible. So, and this is the storylines that you can get, but you can decline it. Like I said, it's optional. If you run it, be aware that it has an impact on other factions. As long as you just run for corporations, there's nothing to worry about unless you have ship guilds. So, and there's and every faction, and this is where we go into the repair a bit. Every faction will always give derivation to the allies, the opposing and the opposing allies, except, and this is the only one, except the Sisters of Eve epic arc, the Bloodstained Stars. And this is, I can show you this, you might have noticed this earlier before. I ran it. This is where you can, and I thought I might fly for Galente because I like him and Sister of Eve. So I predicted if I run for those two, Caldari State will be the one impacted the most. So when I made my choice for which faction in the end I wanted to run for this epic arc, I chose Caldari because I thought I preemptively boosted up because I know I'm going to lose it. And you can see here, mission completed, Del Sango de Alfin, which is the last mission from the Sisters of Eve Bloody Arc, Bloodstained Arc, the Bloodstained Stars, that I got 8.05%, and if I click on Galente, the opposing, there will not be any entry at all. There is no negative impact. This is the only one that gives you positive without any impact. All other epic arcs, all other faction, storyline missions, cosmos missions, whatever, will still, even the career agents, which are here, will still give you a negative impact to the opposing faction. This is the only one. And this is why Sisters of Eve is part of the standing repair plan. And this is why when I hang out in Arnon over a month and helped people along with Dagan to defeat the last two bosses, I always told them, if you choose the one you do not expect to run for, the one the one which is opposing the one you're running for, to preemptively give you a boost and prevent you from tanking your standings. So this is one of the ways. But of course, since the Sisters of Eve arc goes through 6 empires, you still can be shotted if your standings are under -5. So this is something that you use between -5 and -2. From -2 and further up to 0 and positive, you can already access all, or like you don't have the agents blocked to level 1. You can still always access them once your corporation standings go up. So you can fix it yourself. But this is the one where you can bring it from -5 between being shot at and not having restricted access to level 1 agents. This is what you can use to get it up. The first thing that you always should do is your skills, and you go to social and you go to train diplomacy. Diplomacy will influence only your negative standings and bring them up to less negative or even into positive. I cannot show you this here because I haven't trained it and I don't really have anything negative yet to fix. And my advice would be to never train this until needed, because if you already have it trained and then you notice that you're in the negative or too far, you cannot use this option anymore. You cannot untrain it and keep your low standings. Your standings are already ruined. So save diplomacy. This is not a skill you train just to have it. This is a skill you train when you need it, and only when you need it. So, and since you're in the skill tab, there's more. You can train your social skills. Here you get a 5% bonus to the increase, and I haven't trained this yet. Doesn't show. Yeah, connections, and connections affects your effective standings, your actual standings that you have. It doesn't matter how much you gain, it only matters how much you have at that moment, and it will modify it. And since it has diminishing returns, this is very impactful at low standings and has very little influence with higher standings. So actually having only level 2 allowed me to run only like a handful of missions and already have access to level 2 agents just after like half a day. So if you have this to level 3, it's actually totally fine. I have never trained it higher on any character, and I always usually have access to level 3 agents in no time. So this is something that, boosts your current standings. This is something that will boost your gains, and this is something that will fix your negative standings and bring them into positive. If they're not too bad. But this is something you need to be aware of. Diplomacy, don't do it, never do it too early. And if you have to fix something, this is the first step you need to take before you run any other things. And lose a ship or something because the Navy faction is attacking you. So this is something, and the rest is just gains for income, like the loyalty points payout, or negotiations is for like ISK payout and stuff. This has no influence on the standings. Social, connection, diplomacy, very important. So, and there are some other ways to kind of pay for standings, which are all the same, like Cosmos missions and stuff. They're usually only one-time opportunities, which I think is always a bad choice. If there's only one thing you can use only once in the game, I usually discount it as a viable option unless it's a very dire consequence. You can buy these like criminal tags, like I have here. This one, of course, is a cheap one and it's probably not used at all. There are expensive ones which cost many millions, and you can hand these tags in to data centers for certain factions, and they will give you an instant standing increase. But this is like, pay for standings, and also this is like a one-time opportunity. So I wouldn't count on it. First, watch your standings from the beginning, then take care of your diplomacy skill, then run Sisters of Eve epic arc missions, which can be repeated every 3 months. You can run this thing every 3 months, so you can not only counter loss, you can not only preventively inoculate you against standing loss. You can also, while bouncing the empires, up one after the other, you can also still bounce one more, have one more bounce with this, and get high standings. I think I have a character with which has faction standings of the main ones over 5. So it is possible. It just takes a while and it takes care. So, and one further step that you can take if you are, have tanked your standings, and you need access to new corporations that, let's say you're between -2 and 0 or something, and you just got yourself out with diplomacy and the Sisters of Eve arc, and you want to increase your standings, but you don't want to grind like crazy because you are used to run level 4 missions and you don't want to go back. Get a friend, because find somebody who has, either the corporation has standings high enough that you can join. If you want to stay independent and not join anyone, or stay in your own corporations which doesn't give you the access, fly with a friend who has good standings with that corporation and can access high level agents. Then you can fly in fleet with him, and when he hands the mission in, you will get half the standings for that corporation and that agent. So you can actually increase, or he actually, by sharing, you're doing also half the work, I hope. So you run equally fast for the ISK payout, and when he already has unlocked these agents, he doesn't actually need further standings. So he can just share the standings with you, even if you pay him back the ISK and the loyalty points. This can be just a deal. You just pay me back what you got from me, and I just share the standings, depending on how good kind of friends you are. And I do this sometimes. I boost people who just I would like to run higher missions, and okay, I have this here, and let's just share the missions. Or just when I had the player corporation, training corporation, I just ran mission fleets and shared with everybody. We'll run Tinkersync, Tinkersync, yeah, right. Tinker fleets, or kitchen sink fleets. This is where I got confused. So and just shared it, and everybody had great fun. And because I had good connection skills, my skills, the one who accepts the missions, those skills count for gains and payout. So I shared with everybody, and after a short time, of course, the fewer people in fleet, the higher the fewer parts there are, so the higher the gain is. So you can easily boost somebody in that corporation, and once they can unlock that corporation or unlock that agent level 4, you just switch. So he will now run the missions, and the former mission owner joins him now to, because he might not be strong enough to run that mission. But since he's chaining, he will get every 16th mission will get the offer of a storyline mission, which of course he can decline if he says no, I want to keep my old faction standings and I just want to make money here. But usually it is good to at least run a few until it's a bit out of the negative, maybe even positive, and then try to keep it that way. And then maybe you just run only very, very lucrative storyline missions, and not for the faction standings, but just for the payout. So this kind of comes here to a close a bit, I think. So I guess I could end at this. Please leave any comments and notes. I can always edit this or make another video where I go into detail about certain things that I forgot to just look up. Like I said in between, I will add the links in the description down below. I didn't want to say this in the beginning because people say go right into it, don't start explaining why you're doing this video for 20 minutes. I might have done a little bit of it. But I've, like I had said, I had problems myself, and I've been looking around, and the videos I found myself were either quite old, they were incomplete, or talking about things that have been taken out of the game. The menus were old, so all these UI interfaces were different. So that's why I decided to make a new video and I always wanted to do this anyway, so there's something that I could link that is from me. A lot of times I just have to like, oh, let me find something that somebody else wrote and that I'm not really sure they addressed the point. I might take this down if I feel like this is way too long, and I just went on and on and on and on, babbling, just losing it. If you prefer a very short cut, one with like very structured and straightforward, like scripted. I'm just reading like from a script. Okay, I usually find this more entertaining. But you probably could have seen that there was, I think, some ganking going on in local here. I don't know. I didn't follow the chat. But yeah, so just say I hope this helps a bit. Contact me, post, whatever. Fly safe.